So we were having a conversation about how often dogs who are clearly struggling in one setting, such as perhaps a veterinary office or a grooming setting, will move into a functional freeze state when they're taken away from their human and are then mistaken as being fine. And I loved the way that this commenter rephrased it and said, we should describe them as more manageable instead of fine. Because what we know is that dog is actually experiencing higher levels of stress hormones in a freeze state than they were in fight, flight, fawn, or fidget. And that freeze state, that higher level of stress hormones, is correlated with lower resilience to stress and lower coping skills. And then the commenter went on to ask a really great question about, is it better for the animal, though, to be in that freeze state because the work can get done faster, and so the experience isn't as long for the dog, and is that safer for the humans, for the dog to be in freeze versus fight? One of my jobs as a behavior consultant is to help folks break down criteria more finely than they thought possible. And so we have options other than dog in fight mode or dog in freeze. There are a lot of things that we can do in the short and the long term to help the dog get the care they need without experiencing those toxic levels of stress hormones. And there are a lot of reasons why we want to take that care. One is that vet care or grooming or whatever the situation is will become more and more aversive to the dog. So when they're going into that freeze state, they are having a really bad time, and it will become more and more difficult to help that animal in that situation. It also actually isn't safer, and in fact can provide a false sense of security to the stranger, the visitor, the vet staff, the groomer, because that dog is still incredibly stressed, and if they're being mistaken as fine, we may not be prepared for them to then bite, and that's where bites can happen sort of out of nowhere. So barring an emergency situation, if the dog is that stressed out, we need to pause and rethink our plan. That can certainly involve a vent medication, and should. And a lot of folks will say, oh, well, we've tried an event medication and it didn't work for my dog, or they powered right through it. And I think a lot of folks don't know that finding an appropriate event medication for a stress event is a matter of trial and error, and it should be really collaborative with your veterinarian. And so they might need a different dosage, or they might need a different medication, or they might need to use more than one medication synergistically. We might want to add in different supplements or nutraceuticals. There might be a different dosing plan to follow. So like some plans have you give the dog event medication the night before and the day of, and that can make a huge difference. I have many clients who are just knocked completely out. Our antecedent arrangement can play a huge role too, and so specifically looking at keeping the dog's stress low leading up to the visit, practicing low stress handling, engaging with a veterinary clinic that has their environment set up to be low stress, so avoiding lobby wait times or not having pictures of dogs and cats on the walls. We can certainly and should certainly be using things like licky mats and treats. We can schedule happy visits and victory visits where the dog is creating positive associations with the environment and with the people. And many vet clinics will offer these for free. But it doesn't even actually have to start with going into the building and having an appointment. Sometimes this starts with permission, of course, visiting the vet location after hours when it's closed and quiet and just letting the dog sniff around and eat some food. We can build cooperative care skills. We can also, in behavior therapy, in addition to cooperative care skills, we can build resilience to stress, increase self-regulation, build flight cues, increase agency, and all of that can help the dog better handle these stressful situations. So there is so much that we can do to ensure that the pet has a more positive time. And there are clinics doing it all over the place, and this is just for veterinary situations. We can also break down this criteria and support the dog with stranger danger or reactivity on walks or issues with grooming. We just need to get creative and imaginative. And oftentimes it can be very helpful to work with a professional whose job is to do that, because they already have a ton of ideas that they've seen work successfully. And this is important because dogs who struggle at the vet are likely to be taken in later when they have a health problem, because we're balancing, is it worth stressing them out? Is it worth stressing myself out? And so when we consider our pet's physical health, we also need to be considering their behavioral, mental, and emotional health, because it's all connected.